right, folks, well, listen, it is Thursday, which means it's time for us to talk about what is opening this week, brought to you by our friends at AMC Theaters. Now, on Tuesday, we talked about Miss Peregrine's and we talked about Queen of Kauai, but now there's 2 other major films opening this week. Natasha, tell us about them.
Okay, the first film, Deepwater Horizon, is based on the true events that occurred on an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico on April 20th, 2010. The story chronicles the courage of those who worked on the Deepwater Horizon and the extreme moments of bravery and survival in the face of what would become one of the biggest man-made disasters in world history. And the second one we're talking about today is Masterminds. David Ghantt, played by Galifianakis, is stuck in the monotony of driving an armored truck day in and day out. So when his work crush lures him into the heist of a lifetime, David's all in. Despite a pack of harebrained bandits and an absurdly flawed plan, David manages to steal $17 million and promptly hands it over to the gang, who just as promptly double-cross him. Forced to go on the lam, David must dodge the authorities and a hitman and try to turn the tables on his untrustworthy comrades.
All right, let's start with Deepwater Horizon.
Okay.
I pronounced on Tuesday when we talked about Queen of Kauai, I said firmly my number 4 best movie of the year so far for me personally. I love Queen of Kauai. And after seeing Deepwater Horizon, I'm not sure which one is my number 4 favorite now because it's interchangeable to me. I mean, my top 3 in no particular order are still Hell or High Water, Deadpool, Captain America: Civil War, but it's so good. And I remember I was one of the guys that maybe a little bit guffawed when I heard that, that Berg was going to be doing this Deepwater Horizon with Mark Wahlberg. And I thought it was interesting that they had Jane the Virgin in it. I thought, okay, that could be interesting and stuff like that. And let's see it. And I'm a sucker for true event movies. I was not prepared for how good this movie is. And it's not a horror film, but my stomach was just in knots. I watched it with these 2 guys, and the entire movie, my stomach was just in knots. Like the way Berg made you as an audience member feel the terror and the fear and the sense of hopelessness that he communicates from his characters to you, the audience, was unbelievable. Mark Wahlberg is fantastic. I loved this movie. Now, before we go on to the other guys who have seen it, Shep, you haven't seen this movie yet. Before you just heard me spout about it, where's your expectation level been for Deepwater Horizon?
It's just been medium. I mean, the last trailer that I saw got me more into seeing it, but I still have been on the fence about seeing it. But like a lot of the reviews, including yours, a whole bunch of people have been saying it's really an incredible film. It's an incredible portrayal of this true life event. So seeing that, after I saw Sully, which I thought was an incredible film, I'm more apt to want to see this film now.
Mark, you sat there in the theater beside us. What did you think about this movie?
Just as riveted as you boys, John. I mean, I think Schnapp actually makes a great comparison because we got to see Sully and what was the guts of an event that we were aware of but really didn't know the full story. Same thing with Deepwater Horizon. And if you had any apprehension about Mark Wahlberg being the lead in this movie and whether they're going to make it like an over-the-top extreme action kind of film of him just being a hero and saving everybody, remember also it's directed by Peter Berg, who did such a magnificent job with Mark Wahlberg doing Lone Survivor together. I got the same kind of feels I got watching that film that I did with Deepwater Horizon. I didn't think it was as great at Lone Survivor, but that's a huge bar to hit for me. So I thought Deepwater Horizon was impressive. And Jeremy, one of my favorite parts about the movie is how they treat us as the audience members like we aren't aware of everything that goes into drilling for oil, and they give us just enough so we can follow along with the movie without overwhelming us with a bunch of scientific stuff.
Yeah, the movie really breaks it down for you. And the good thing the thing I liked about it is that when you see a tragedy or a disaster on camera, on the TV, on the news, you're like, oh, that fire happened. Well, I mean, that's tragic. That sucks. But you don't get the scope of it. You don't feel like you're there. You felt like you were on this oil rig. And when these things start blowing up, you're like, oh, you mean this was detrimentally horrifying for everybody there. You feel like your life's in peril. And that's what I loved about this, is the fact that you got a perspective. Cinema gave us a perspective that we otherwise never would have gotten. And that's the advantageous thing about making these biopics, is where it gives you that the boots on the ground feeling that you don't get when you're just watching the news and you're hearing about it happen. Now you get to feel it happen, and it was probably the most impactful movie of 2016 for me. You can find my more in-depth review on YouTube/Jeremy Johns.
I was, and Wahlberg was. If you got any worries about Wahlberg at all,
oh yeah, for sure.
He's solid.
Which really you shouldn't at this point, but for some reason we all see Mark Wahlberg just for a second, he just had that. Oh, I guess he's an action star. Oh yeah, no wait, he's been nominated for an Oscar. He's great.
Kurt Russell's great in it. John Malkovich is dickishly great in it. I mean, it's a really good scene. Now we go to the other side of the pendulum. Last night, I had the distinct pleasure of watching the comedy Masterminds, which I had been looking forward to for years. This is a movie, of course, was supposed to come out years ago. We first talked about the trailer from You Doing Okay, Jeremy? We first saw the trailer for Masterminds years ago, and I liked the trailer very much. And then it got delayed. A lot of the drama with relativity had part of that. I don't think I'm exaggerating at all. I'm doing some self-examination here. I don't think I'm exaggerating at all. This is the worst film I've seen in years. It is the worst film I have seen in years. Nothing about this movie works. And what is really the telltale sign that you got a truly awful movie is when you got some really talented people in it, and you could tell these talented people are giving their best. You could tell Zach Galifianakis, Kristen Wiig, Owen Wilson, Jason Sudeikis. You can tell these people are trying to make something happen. They're trying to make something happen, and nothing is happening. You know, I often talk about, Jeremy talked about this in the car on the way home last night. I said, you know, with horror films, you can do everything wrong. But if you scare people and give them some, like, freak them out, you get a pass. Everything's fine. With comedy, you can do almost everything wrong, but if you make the people laugh, all is forgiven. But if you don't make the people laugh, you ain't going nowhere. And I had 3 chuckles in this movie. 2 of them are in the trailers. Through 90 minutes of something, this movie was painful. It's just a dreadful, dreadful movie. I can't recommend it for anybody, and I just can't see it being appreciated by anybody. And Schnepp, you've been watching these trailers as long as I have. So before hearing my glowing review, what's been your anticipation
You're
level?
making me really want to see it now. I mean, for some reason, I was like, man, I'm not going to see this movie. It's been delayed multiple times. It seems like it just doesn't have its shit together. But now with what you said, I really want to. No, I'm not going to see it. In fact, I'm not going to take your line, but Jeremy compared it to another film that I was ripping on and hated. He said, that makes that film an Oscar. What Oscar winner? What was that film that you were talking about?
I said I would rather watch Vacation than this movie.
Right, the new Vacation.
Yeah, the
which
new
is
Vacation.
Horrible. Yeah.
I would rather watch that. No, seriously, there's one group of folks that I would show this movie to for a point and purpose is because we now have something to replace waterboarding to get information out of terrorists. That's it. It's this movie right here. I swear to you. It's there's one part that I actually enjoyed. And it's the end credits. They have outtakes, and you're seeing the cast have a good time. They're laughing, they're joking, they're having a good time. But it's a trick, folks. They do that to end you having a good time, so when you walk out, you don't actually feel the low that you just felt. But it has nothing to do with the movie. I'm on to your tricks. Don't watch it.
Ellis?
I'm going to be the positive guy on this panel because I didn't hate the movie as much as you guys did. It's not a good movie at all. It really isn't. You can see why they were skittish about releasing it and why it took so long. I appreciate effort sometimes. That's why I love the movie Rudy so much. Is he's a horrible athlete, but he tried his ass off. You're right. The actors, the players in this movie try their hardest, and I got at least one laugh out of Galifianakis, out of Kristen Wiig, out of Jason Sudeikis, out of Leslie Jones, Ken Marino, Owen Wilson. They all tried their best. I just feel like it's based on a true story that's so crazy. You don't need to try to make every scene so slapsticky funny, and that's what they were trying to do. Yeah. They tried to make a comedy on a premise that was already so weird that you didn't need to accentuate it, and that was a huge misfire. It was like making Die Hard a musical. You know, it was like making Titanic like an action movie. Just the tone didn't fit with what the story you were telling. Even though the story that you're telling has elements of comedy, you don't need to inject just like stupid jokes into every scene. The reason why I could stick with it till the end was that it was based on a true story. There were people that walked in 5 minutes after us and they didn't see the beginning of the movie when it said based on a true story. They were hating it. They were like, what are they trying to do to us? It is based on a true story, so I was at least interested, but it's not a fresh movie at all.
And it should be noted that this movie is one Melissa McCarthy short of being a Ghostbusters reunion because everybody else was in there. Right.